Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel, and we have a little bit of a different episode today. Obviously Lauren filmed our podcast in the studio earlier on this week with Chris talking about all the news and stuff like that, but today we have a little bit something different. I'm here with Emma, BBC Sports journalist. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
good to see you.
My pleasure. I know, it's been a while.
I
know. But the main reason why I've got Emma on today is an article went out by Emma last week talking about when she went and spoke to Vicky Jepson and kind of got her view on the whole USA Preseason tour that happened. Was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah, they got back, about a week and a half
ago.
Yeah,
it's flown by. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I've read the article. It's honestly a brilliant article. I'll insert a screenshot and leave it in the description down below. Really, really good article. Just how let's kind of like start it from let's kind of start it from the beginning when it was sort of introduced that they were going to be going alongside the men to the USA. What were your initial thoughts on it? And we'll get on to what Jepson had said in a bit, but what were your feelings towards it in the start? Like, obviously it's impressive and it's good for the game, but what did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I think it was a sign of Liverpool as a club acknowledging that they needed to maybe do more with the women's side, especially obviously off the back of the World Cup. And yeah. I think it was arranged slightly before that, but I think everyone knew that this World Cup was going to be sort of a platform for change for women's football. So I thought it was fantastic, and it was a really great opportunity for the women to see what it's like travelling alongside the men for one, but also playing in front of new audiences, obviously over in the States where women's football is so big there, and just like general sort of travelling and playing games in quick succession, which obviously like the women went on tour to Germany last season, but that was only for 2 friendlies, so I know they only played 2 games this time, but they went to 3 cities as well, so it's a slightly different dynamic. There's loads of things that they got out of it, and I think it was fantastic that they were given the opportunity.
I think it's especially exciting for the younger players like Bo Kearns that went along. Even some of the other ones like Perfield, for example, who's still quite young in a career and things like that. It must have been such an incredible opportunity to literally not only just be in America greeting all these new fans that they probably didn't even know existed over there, or they didn't know anything about, but also to be alongside the men's team. Like, I know Bo Kearns is a massive Liverpool fan in itself, and then you're sat on a plane a couple of rows away from Champions League winners. It must have been such a surreal feeling for not just the Liverpool fans within the team, but the whole team in general.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's one of those things where obviously the women's team, we know they're highly professional, and for them it's they know that they're there to do a job. And I don't think at any point they were fangirly, they were sort of in awe of themselves, but I think they also did appreciate that they were on tour with these equally fantastic professionals who they could learn a lot from, and I think they definitely made the most of that.
No, definitely. For me, it was such a humbling moment to kind of see them all on the plane, like taking photos with each other, and it just looked like they were enjoying themselves. And as you said, they knew that they had a job to do. They knew that this pre-season wasn't going to be a walk in the park, that you're playing against such physically attributed games when you're in America, because you know that style of football is different to the way that we play it in the UK. So they kind of knew it was a challenge. But it's kind of like, what a better way to kind of set yourself up, and it was a pretty good pre-season overall, and the fact that we drew 1 and then we won 1 by a large sum of goals. I think that gives them such confidence going into this season, especially with all the troubles that went on and in kind of the insecurity of last season, losing the manager, losing heavily on the opening day, not really having much time together. Do you think this pre-season, especially going away in that sort of way, brought the team closer together?
Yeah, definitely, because I mean, it's no secret, like you said there, that last season I think the club were in a tricky situation on the women's side. Obviously, they lost the manager early on, and it was kind of a bit of a transitional period, losing so many internationals. I think Vicky's done a fantastic job of rebuilding that, and obviously sort of building relationships within the club and outside the club. And now I think they've got a really stable platform that they can build on this season. And a lot of that has come down to the work that they've done in the summer. Obviously, the transfers that they've made. I think Melissa Lawley is an unbelievable signing. I think she'll be a big player this season. And then obviously the tour with the men as well. And it's not just the like you say, when you're speaking to people like Jurgen Klopp and Jordan Henderson and those James Milner as well, those kind of experienced players. You're going to learn stuff of them. You can't spend a summer with them and not learn anything from them. So, they definitely would have got something out of that. And then, obviously, like you say, the challenges facing different teams in America. I know Vicky said that when they played against the Cleveland team, they're not a professional team, but they did actually draft in players from America. So there was a Canadian international and there was 2 players from Stanford University that they'd flown in specifically to play against Liverpool. So the players, the teams over in America were also taking it very seriously and making sure that they provided Liverpool with a challenge. So that was really good to see.
Sorry about that, 2 messages just came through. You'll have seen them on the screen.
It's probably Lauren.
Oh, it was. Lauren. Yeah, because I rang her before to obviously talk about how to do Skype because I ain't got a clue. So she just messaged me back anyways. Apologies for those who've seen them. Moving on to a bit on the article in itself then. What was it like speaking to Jepson about this sort of experience? Like, I can assume she was quite positive about it and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely was. She was really positive about it. Said, the young players especially got a lot out of it. And, on the football pitch, they had those challenges, that sort of mentioned before. And obviously, you said about the different styles of play. I know. I think in the second game, she said that the teams they sort of dropped back, and there was maybe 6 at the back at some point. Wow. That was a different challenge of having to break down those teams. So. In terms of actual football, they got a lot of that. They got a lot out of that, and then obviously the excitement of the whole travelling experience. They definitely got a lot out of that. Yeah,
in particular, when I was reading the article, I picked up on the fact that the players went onto the pitch at half time during the Dortmund game, and I've seen a few videos as well because obviously the girls all had their phones with them, and you could see on the Instagram stories and things like that. But the crowd chanting their name, Liverpool Women, Liverpool Ladies, whatever it was, that must have been such an unreal experience. What did Jepson have to say about the support that they received from being over in America?
Yeah, she said the support was exceptional. Obviously that, hearing their name chanted at half-time, she said was the highlight of the tour. And obviously we don't really get that often over here in England. Jepson did sort of refer to that and said, it's that kind of level of support that is just so common in America towards women's football. So that is obviously what we aspire to be in England. And I know the players really appreciated that level of support. And everywhere they went, there was always people sort of asking for autographs and wanting to take photographs. And it wasn't all about the men; it was equally just as much about the women. Obviously, they travelled on the plane together, but they had separate team buses, so there were people that were coming out just to see the women, which was fantastic for them.
Yeah, Jepson also mentioned the small things that you kind of mentioned one there, the fact they had their own bus, things like that. She also mentioned the fact that they had security, and that's potentially one of the first times that they've had to sort of use security in that sort of way. That must have been a mad experience for some of those players that, especially, we've said it a lot, but the younger ones that maybe haven't seen that level of excitement from fans, things like that, because it's difficult in the UK because I think most of the players know the fans that go week in, week out to Prenton Park, things like that, who message them on social media, blah, 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 tweet about them, things like that. So to go into a foreign country and then sort of, in a way, be separated by security, not obviously to keep them away from them, but just to make sure things have got a handle on it. What did Jepson sort of say about that side of things? Like, as I said, the small things like security, having the big red bus. How do you think that kind of not affected, but kind of played on the players' minds, or maybe it was just a brilliant experience to have those sort of things come into play, whereas you probably wouldn't necessarily see them if you go down to Prenton Park, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at the time, I got the impression that it didn't really affect the players in terms of how they were preparing for their games on tour. But I think Jepson did admit it was a little bit overwhelming at times.
Yeah.
Probably for the younger players, like you say, because it's not that there isn't that support here in the UK. It's just you don't see it as often.
Yeah.
Obviously, like you say, there's not as many attendances at games, which is something that they really want to change, and they hope will come off the back of this pre-season tour, and obviously off the back of the World Cup. So I think at times it was a little bit,
just a bit of a shock.
Surreal. Yeah, it's probably a bit shocked by it, but also there was a huge level of respect from both sides. Yeah. The women remaining professional throughout, and and the fans just sort of appreciating them for the work that they did. And Jepson said that people were sort of in awe of what they were doing when they were there. So when they were training, and the people who were sort of hosting them over in the States were providing them with all the facilities, anything they needed. Apparently, they were there straight away. So ice, water, goals, anything like that, they were on the ball with it. So they were definitely given that level of respect that they deserve.
Yeah. Do you think that has something to do with the fact that women's football over there is sort of on another level? Like, it's almost seen as a par, potentially even higher sometimes than men's football. Do you think that's one of the reasons why they kind of, when the Liverpool women went over there, they drew so much more attention?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, Jepson sort of admitted this as well. Yeah. She said off the back of their back-to-back World Cup titles, it's hard for America to not really fall in love with women's football. So that's definitely what they've done over there. And like you say, it's just that week in, week out element of support that they get, which we haven't achieved kind of anywhere near in the UK. And obviously, like I said before, that's what we aspire to do. It was you get a lot out of that, because
definitely,
you're thrust into everyone's attentions, but you're also getting that kind of experience, I guess, of what players playing in America will get.
Exposure as well, in a way, I think is a big one that they're going to benefit loads from. Obviously, not just for this season now, but in seasons to come. If you get more people around the country watching it, it becomes a bigger spectacle in itself. And I think it seemed to work. The whole tour just seemed to work really well, and hopefully we'll see it go on and on, sort of thing, which is what I think what we all want to see. In terms of actual Jepson and her relationship with Klopp, then what sort of did she have to say? Because I, genuinely speaking, as it is, I didn't really know if they had much of a relationship, if staying in Liverpool, whether they've spoken to each other before. Obviously they'll know of who each other are, obviously, but I didn't really know if they had a relationship. But looking on the tour, it looked like they did, and it looked like it's great to see two managers of the same club kind of come together and portray to the rest of the world that it is a one club mentality, and hopefully that'll progress into the fans and things like that. How did she speak about him, and what was their relationship like on the tour?
Yeah, I mean, Jepson said that they had some really good interaction with the men's side, so the players and the manager, and they took the time to come over and speak to them when they were on the plane and ask how the tour had been for them. And I know Vicky spoke to Jürgen a couple of times on tour. He sat down and asked sort of how things were going, and sort of ran through their training and sort of things that they've been doing. And I know in the piece I referred to a time when she walks into a bar in New York and picks her up and gives her a big bear hug. And she says he's just the same as what he is on camera. He's a really chirpy guy. He's happy. He's bubbly. He has time for everyone. And the way he talks about football. Jepson says it's clear that he just absolutely loves the game. Yeah. He was really interested in what the women's side were doing, and he spoke about sort of Liverpool being one club, and that he cared about all aspects of the club, and he genuinely was interested in what was going on. So that was really, really good for Jepson and for the girls to hear. And like I say, there was some of the experienced players coming over and speaking to the women as well on their trips home. So, it's looking good. And obviously, the club were really pleased with how it went. I know Peter Moore put a lot of work into sort of setting up the process.
A lot of credit to him, I think, for the way he comes to women's games all the time, and he just seems really, really involved and switched on with it all.
Yeah, definitely. He was, like you said, a big advocate for it, and I know he's put a lot of work into it, and I think he was really pleased with how the tour went as a whole, and I'm sure the club will be hoping to do the same again next season.
I hope so. I hope it's one of them things that keeps going, like it's not a one-off sort of thing, because I think it does well just for integration, and it kind of shows to all the other teams, like, this is what we're doing. Like, I've spoken about this quite a lot in the past throughout several podcast episodes that we've done, that Man City do it really well, in the sense that they've got that one club mentality by getting photos with them all, using footage from when they won the Conti Cup, the women won the Conti Cup and then the FA Cup, things like that. So I think they've done it really well, but I do now think that Liverpool have sort of caught onto that, and they've realised that actually this is the way forward now. This is the sort of the right way to go about promoting both of the teams, and I think it kind of does show to all the other teams in the Premier League, in the WSL, the Championship, anything like that, that it's kind of a marker, and it's like we're showing to the rest of the leagues that this is what we're going to do, and we're the forefront of it, which I think is for a club that I support and that you support as well. It makes you quite proud to kind of see that they've caught onto it and they're trying to make a difference of it now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I completely agree with that, and I think I actually think a lot of clubs get criticised for the game passing them by, I guess, in the last couple of years. Maybe some clubs who have had women's success in the past, Liverpool being one of them, maybe didn't really realise how quickly the game was growing.
Yeah.
And I obviously, it's a shame that that's happened, but I also think that those clubs now, especially Liverpool, that are addressing that issue and, turning things over now and really, really making an effort, I think they actually deserve a lot of applause for that, because I think it takes a lot for them to recognise that changes need to be made and then actually act upon them as something else. And there's only a few clubs who have done that so far, and like you say, City are definitely leading the way. I think Arsenal have been really good at supporting their women's team as well, and it looks like Liverpool are now, really pushing to do the same, and I think that's fantastic, and I think the club as a whole should be applauded for that.
No, definitely. We'll finish it off on kind of your thoughts on the upcoming season of WSL as a whole. Obviously, United and Spurs have now come into the mix. United looking really strong in terms of the signings that they've made and the players that they've been able to retain. I'm a little bit scared by them, I'm not going to lie. And then obviously sponsorship deals that have come into play. Obviously Barclays being the big one, actually within the name of the Super League now. How do you think in terms of... Firstly, we'll start off with who are you most looking forward to seeing this season in terms of club and who they've signed, who they've been able to retain and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be lying if I didn't say I was excited to see how United get on this season, actually.
I think most people are.
Yeah, I think I'm just so intrigued by, obviously, the setup. It's so professional. Casey Stoney, as we know, from her time at Liverpool, is I think she was a phenomenal footballer, and I also think she's a phenomenal professional, and I think she's just a born winner, and I genuinely think that they will be coming into WSL, to try and challenge for the title, and obviously that would be a massive task given City and Arsenal and Chelsea.
They'll definitely be up there, I think.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be those four. Hopefully Liverpool can cause them a bit of problems as well, but I think I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how they got on, and you mentioned sponsors there, and I think that's going to play a big role in terms of lifting the game this year. I think the clubs individually are going to have to work really hard, because there's an opportunity now to bring in supporters and all that from that basically that's what's come from the summer. Attracting these new fans. But I mean, the real issue is actually getting people into the stadiums. I think the average attendances last season was about 1,800 in WSL, which is disappointing. When you see that yesterday it was announced that over 50,000 tickets have been sold for England's game at Wembley against Germany. So if you can get 50,000 England fans, then sure you can get more than 2,000 fans at a league match.
Definitely, yeah.
So I think that's the main goal, and I think while there's all these positive things, and I don't want to put a negative stamp on things, but I still think there is a lot of work to be done in terms of individual clubs really promoting season tickets and promoting games, and clubs working alongside the men's side and trying to find a way where fans that support both clubs, because I know you're like myself, we support the men's team, and so we want to be able to watch their games as well as the women's, and I think they just need to think about it a little bit more, really don't close off any opportunity. I think that's the worst thing, because so many times last season, I remember there was a derby game for the women on the same day as a derby game for the men, and it was like they almost crossed over each other, and it's like a little bit more preparation here. You could have either set the women's game early and the men's game a little bit later, or just made it away so fans would be able to attend both. Make it a double header. That kind of leads it on good to what I also wanted to ask you. The fact that Arsenal women did a double header. Well, it was only a few days ago. So it was them versus Bayern Munich, the women first, and then it went into the men versus Lyon. I think it was average. Was it 40 something? A couple of It was a good attendance number, but I saw a lot of the reaction on Twitter was, or just on social media in general, was it worked, but it could have worked better. Like, there could have been more people out there, things like that. And what are your take on double headers and the potential for them to be used this season? I'm actually a big fan of them. I think they're really good. I get that people say there could have been more there, but at the end of the day, there was a higher attendance than realistically what there would have been if it wasn't on the same day as the men. So I think you've got to look at the positives, and I think it's hard for fans of women's football to appreciate that it's got to be really, really small steps, because we want so much for our game, but it is steps and not leaps. We have to do things in a process, and I think that was definitely a step forward. Like I say, it was a higher attendance than usual. I also think obviously there was people there who, especially families, I think there's young people who probably wouldn't have gone to the women's game, but because they're already going to the men's game, the parents might say, well, let's get down there a little bit earlier. And I think that's really good. I don't think there's any harm in that. I also think women's teams playing at men's stadiums as a one-off, I think, is a really great idea as well. I'm really, really looking forward to the Manchester derby in a few weeks' time. I'll say a few weeks, it's like September, but that'll fly by. But obviously that's going to be at the Etihad, and then Chelsea are playing at Stamford Bridge as well for their opening game, and I think those one-off games are really important. I also think there is a level of importance of playing at your own stadium as well. So obviously Liverpool playing regularly at Prenton Park and making that stadium a home for fans who regularly attend and come with season tickets. Because I think it's important to not disregard the fans who have supported them from day one. I think they are essentially the core of the fan base, and you do need to support that. Definitely. But I think everyone needs to just be very welcoming, and anybody who hasn't been to a women's game before, and if they've been given the opportunity to come, then I can't see how that's a negative in any way.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. We had a lovely discussion about everything. The season's so close, and I'm really not sure I'm ready for it yet. It just feels like because of the World Cup, football's not stopped. The World Cup, the season finished, straight into the World Cup, straight into pre-season. Now we're a few weeks away from the start of the season, but we've got loads of stuff planned on our channel of what we want to do throughout the season, so make sure you all stay tuned for that. definitely go and check out Emma's article with Jepson. It genuinely, it's a really, really good article, and it's a nice insight into what's gone on that you maybe don't see on social media, on videos and things like that. So it's really good. Thank you for that, and thank you for coming on today. It's a pleasure.
Yeah,
we'll have to get you in the studio at some point with a bit
yes.
more of a professional setup.
Yes.
Oh well. But yes, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe. Check out the podcast that went out a few days ago with Lauren and Chris. They did a great job. While I've sacked it off for this week. I'm joking, not really. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time with another video.